Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight now. So good to have you back with us. If you're hopping over from our live stream that we just concluded of the unfortunately scrubbed launch attempt of the SpaceX Crew 11 mission. In its stead, SpaceX is going to attempt to launch a batch of Starlink satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base. Liftoff time, you see that are on your screen. That's targeting a launch at 11:35 a.m. Pacific, 2:35 p.m. Eastern, 18:35 UTC for our friends around the world. Just about 13 minutes away from liftoff. We had to get some things reconfigured in order to get back on the air so quickly after ending the Crew 11 stream, which is why we're starting a little bit later than we normally would on a Vandenberg mission. Of course, our launch photographers have been busy with the attempt at Pad 39A here in Florida. Got a lot of great pictures from crew walkout and of the rocket itself and its pre-launch configuration. So go on over and check out the photos that they were capturing and have published so far. You can find them at their handles here on X. Adam is at ABurnNYC. Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr. John Pisani at John Pisani Photo. Be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. You can also find us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Meanwhile, SpaceX, ever the busy bees, are also apparently conditioning propellant for loading on their Starship upper stage over at Starbase down in Texas. Preparation for potentially a static fire today over at Pad A. This live view brought to us by our friends at Lab Padre. This ship upper stage would be used in the Starship Flight 10 mission, which SpaceX founder Elon Musk says is possible to launch in the August timeframe. TBD on the work still left ahead beyond the static fire test. Of course, they had to specially rig the orbital launch mount there in order to support the ship upper stage, since it was principally designed for the super heavy booster and not ship. This comes as a result of the explosion at their Massey's test facility that caused significant damage to their test stand and prevents them from moving forward with testing at that site for now. So in order to keep things moving at as close to normal cadence as they can muster, they've created this setup here at Pad A, and again they're getting the fuel ready, presumably in pursuit of a static fire test if all goes well at the end of this test campaign. Taking a quick look at the weather, since that is the storyline du jour. Over on the West Coast, things are not quite as bad as they've been here in Florida. This view from the GOES West satellite, you can see the clouds that are hanging over the area around Vandenberg are starting to slip offshore now as it gets later in the morning there. So hopefully as this Falcon 9 rocket takes off, folks will have at least a somewhat decent view of the vehicle. Less than 8 minutes to go. At this point, coming up next will be the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon booster. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage. T-minus 8 minutes, 6 seconds, and counting. Coming up after the engine chill will be the conclusion of RP-1 loading on board the rocket's booster stage. Today's flight, dubbed Starlink 13-4, will add another 19 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites into SpaceX's ever-growing low Earth orbit fleet. Taking a look at the payload that is on board today's Falcon 9 flight from the West Coast. 19 Starlink satellites in total, as I just mentioned. This mission will be SpaceX's 68th Starlink launch of the year so far. Launching these optimized V2 Mini satellites, they are significantly lighter than their predecessor V2 Minis. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering, built up in Redmond, Washington. T-minus 6 minutes and counting. Again, at this point, the RP-1 tank on the booster should be full. RP-1 is a rocket-grade kerosene, the fuel of the Falcon 9 rocket on both the first and the second stages. The company uses liquid oxygen as the oxidizer. First stage LOX load should be topping off at about the 3-minute mark, so in roughly 2.5 minutes from now. As we come up on 5 minutes out, we should be getting pad level views of the Falcon 9 rocket momentarily. Of course, we'll bring that into our broadcast as soon as we get that. Want to take a moment before we get pad level views, just talk about the trajectory of this mission. The Falcon 9 rocket, once it takes off from the pad, will fly in a southerly trajectory once it heads out from Slick 4 East. The first stage booster, tail number B1071 in the SpaceX fleet, will target a landing on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for Stromberg retract.
As we just heard that call, you can, well, sort of see the rocket. You can see at least the base of the strongback through a combination of the fog and the vapor that's being generated by the fueling of the rocket. Not the most picturesque day at Vandenberg, but a very quintessentially Vandenberg day at Vandenberg.
Strongback retract has started.
The first stage booster launching this mission will fly for a 27th time. One of the flight leaders for SpaceX. Not the flight leader, but certainly up there. With a good liftoff today, that will put B-1071 into the second place slot as far as the list of Falcon 9 frequent flyers, behind B-1067, which has flown so far 29 times. As we're getting into this coverage, want to thank the little more than 1,700 of you who are watching along with us live. Appreciate you popping over as we got this stream up and running. If you haven't already, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could hit that like button, especially important in a late startup as we have today, given the pause and pivot from the Crew 11 launch that we had to do quite quickly. Want to welcome in new channel member Glamper Jan, joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Also, welcome aboard to Michael Williams, also pad leader level. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts that are
Stage
on
1 launch load is complete.
line shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. You just heard Stage 1 LOX load call out. The booster LOX tank now full. We should be hearing a similar call in the second stage, coming up at around the T-minus 2 minute mark. Just seeing those landing legs peek out from the fog there at the pad. You can see the strong back has reclined roughly 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Here at Vandenberg, it'll stay in that position up to and through liftoff. As we await the call out for the conclusion of fueling, want to thank channel member Chuck Close for very generous $25 super chat. Really appreciate that, Chuck. As we are going on our 6.5 hour of continuous live launch coverage today, it's certainly appreciated the support.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that good call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. You can just make out against the actual fog the additional venting
Ground
that
gas closeout.
is from the ground gas closeouts. SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad. Coming up on the final minute, we'll hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, meaning control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And now the propellant tanks are also being brought up to flight pressure. We're coming up on the SpaceX launch director giving their go for launch, coming in the next few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, listen along with you for the final minutes, or final 30 seconds of liftoff, and we'll be back with you on the other side with additional commentary.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
The vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
All good callouts, good milestones as the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket has made its ascent from Vandenberg Space Force Base against a bed of fog there along the California coastline, now soaring high above the clouds.
MVAC chill.
SpaceX is thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage in preparation for the start of its first burn. Coming up on a few events now in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That'll be followed seconds later by stage separation, and then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. The fairings should be jettisoned right about the 3-minute mark.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Good milestone here as you see the hypersonic grid fins deploy. Odd, though,
Fairing separation confirmed.
that we are not getting any proper upper stage views. The load of 19 Starlink V2 mini satellites is also considerably lighter than we've seen in some time from SpaceX. If you want to go into speculation territory, suppose there's a possibility that SpaceX could be carrying some Starshield satellites on this flight. Just looking back through our stats of Falcon 9 Starlink launches this year. Throughout the course of 2025, there has not been a launch of Starlink satellites that has had as few as 19.
Vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
Throughout the course of this entire year. The lightest load that we've seen that was not a mission that had the direct-to-cell Starlink satellites, looks like that may have been perhaps Starlink 11-4, which carried 22. You also had Starlink 13-1, which we do know did carry 2 Starshield satellites as a rideshare mission. So Starlink 13-1 is potentially our closest one-to-one with the mission that we've got here today. Stand by as we troubleshoot this and bring the feed back as quickly as we can. A little more than 5 minutes into flight, the next milestone that we're looking for is coming up at about T plus 6 minutes and 10 seconds when there will be the start of the entry burn when SpaceX lights 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines to begin to slow the vehicle down as it makes its way towards the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. A good landing on this vessel today would mark the 143rd booster landing on this particular drone ship and the 483rd Falcon booster landing to date.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Now through the point of the entry burn, coming up next will be the start of the landing burn. That's coming up in roughly 45 seconds, just before the 8-minute mark.
Trajectory nominal.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 in terminal guidance.
All good calls from SpaceX. That last one meaning that the upper stage is preparing to conclude its first burn.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And for a 27th time, B-1071 has made it to space and back.
MVAC shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster for this mission, what comes next is the coast phase, of course, which upstage has just now entered. It'll coast until T plus 54 minutes and 15 seconds. There will be a brief 1-second burn to circularize the orbit. Then the Starlink satellites will be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 7 seconds. And for those tracking orbital deployment, we'll be very curious to see how this payload is cataloged. If it is just 19 Starlink satellites or if there's something else hitching a ride. Time will tell. Speaking of time, it's about time we get to our mission stats and close out our coverage, as we're coming up on, 7 hours now of continuous live coverage? Lost count. Started at 8 a.m. Eastern, so whatever we're at now. This was the 27th flight of Falcon 9 booster, B-1071. This mission marked SpaceX's 511th Falcon 9 launch to date. This was the company's 94th launch of 2025, the 155th within the last 365 days. This is SpaceX's 139th orbital launch from Space Launch Complex 4 East and the 207th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's where our Falcon bar chart now currently stands. Moving on to some recovery stats. The 143rd good landing on the drone ship, of course, I Still Love You. This was the 392nd drone ship landing for SpaceX, and as we mentioned, the 483rd Falcon booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats to wrap things up, this was the 34th orbital flight from the Golden State of California, the 99th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 109th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 168th orbital launch around the world. There have been 4 mishaps on the year so far, and here's where our pie chart currently stands. And where we stand is to bid you all adieu, my friends. Want to thank moderator Rick Donner for hopping back in for one more broadcast. Thanks to actually my mother, Mary Robinson, for gifting a $20 super chat, which I'm just now seeing. Appreciate that, Mom. Glad to see you hopping in the chat here today. I also want to thank channel member Cumulus Granatus for helping to answer folks' questions in the chat. Thanks again to our whole photography team here in Florida who have been working exceedingly hard. Even though they weren't tracking this launch, they were busily breaking things down from a busy day of attempted launch coverage, phrase it like that. We'll see when next SpaceX and NASA are ready to spin up and try again. Indications are that that may be as soon as tomorrow, but given the launch of a Falcon 9 rocket just now, and the fact that typically SpaceX and NASA have a 24-hour gap between a launch of a Falcon 9 and a NASA mission to review the data from this mission with enough time. That coupled with the fact that the Ascent corridor recovery weather is, let's say, not ideal. Don't be surprised if a Friday launch attempt turns to early next week, since the weekend doesn't look like it fares much better. I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate you sticking with us throughout the course of a very busy day. And be sure to subscribe to the channel here and join us for when next we are live again. The silver lining of the Crew 11 launch slipping is folks have more time to spend with our wonderful packages that we created profiling each of the 4 crew members of Crew 11. Put a lot of hard work into those, so I hope you do take some time to check those out. I think you'll enjoy learning more about the quartet that has come together for Crew 11. Meanwhile, if you want to head on over to our 24/7 live stream Launchpad Live, we've got live views of not only the VAB Pad 39A, but also, courtesy of our friends at Lab Padre, views of that their Starship rocket, which has been fueling in preparation potentially for a static fire test. So you can keep tabs on the goings on down there at Starbase in that stream. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I am Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. Until then, bye-bye.